Samsung has just unveiled the Galaxy Tab S8 series, with the S8 Ultra being Samsung's highest end and also biggest tablet. But how do they compare against the iPad Pros? I have 5 categories to compare them in, from display to software, accessories, performance, as well as features and value. I think the display on a tablet is one of the most, if not the most important thing. The iPad Pro comes in 2 sizes, 11-inch and 12.9-inch, whereas the Tab S8 comes in 3, 11, 12.4, and 14.6. For people who use their tablet as their main and only device, having a bigger display makes a huge difference. Reason why I do believe that Samsung's doing something right here by offering 3 models. When it comes to the display tech, the 11-inch iPad Pro and the 11-inch Tab S8 use an LCD display with a refresh rate of up to 120Hz. The 12.9-inch iPad Pro uses a mini LED display with much better black levels and an insanely high brightness of up to 1600 nits compared to the 600 nits that we have on the 11-inch iPad Pro. The Tab S8 Plus and the Tab S8 Ultra both come with a 120Hz OLED display. We don't actually have any brightness numbers yet, but I'm very certain that these won't go anywhere near the 1600 nit brightness of the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. The Tab S7 Plus, for example, which also had a 120Hz OLED display, could only go up to around 400 nits. However, the iPad Pro only goes to 1600 nits when you are watching an HDR video. Otherwise, it will always stay at a maximum of 600. If you use your tablet outdoors a lot, the iPad might still be the better choice here. But for watching movies at night, I would 100% go with the Tab S8 Plus or the Tab S8 Ultra, as the iPad Pro's mini LED display does have some noticeable blooming, which can be very distracting. As I don't work with HDR content, I would pick the S8 Plus or the S8 Ultra, thanks to the larger display size and perfect black levels with no blooming. The second most important thing for me in a tablet is, of course, the software. And here, there are basically 2 major differences: the number of apps and the level of multitasking. The iPad is the clear winner here when it comes to the number and the quality of apps, with plenty of optimized and professional apps like Photoshop, LumaFusion, GarageBand, Procreate, Affinity Photo, and many others. But Samsung isn't doing so bad here either. Samsung has also announced that LumaFusion, the popular video editing software, will be available soon too. And as time goes on, more and more pro apps will start to be ported to Samsung's tablets. However, when it comes to multitasking, there is a massive difference between the two. With the iPad, you can run 2 apps side by side and then a third app as a slide over, which seems great until you realize that not all apps support multitasking. There have been a lot of times when I needed to use an app side by side against another, only to find out that it didn't actually work because one of the apps did not support it, which basically ruins the whole multitasking experience. With a Tab S8, any app will support multitasking, and you can also have way more side-by-side windows than with the iPad. I do think that the best part about a Tab S8 is the ability to enter DeX mode, which changes the UI to make it look and behave in a very similar way to Windows. It also lets you run the desktop version of some apps like Chrome and Microsoft Office. Software-wise, the iPad does have more apps and more pro apps, but the Tab S8 handles multitasking way better, and DeX is a truly unique feature that can have some real-world benefits to your workflow. So I'm gonna call this one a tie. The third most important thing in a tablet for me is the accessories, and both feature a pen and a keyboard. The main difference here being that Samsung's pen comes bundled in the box, whereas with Apple, the Apple Pencil costs $130 extra. Samsung's pen also has a much lower latency of 2.8 milliseconds compared to 9 on the Apple Pencil. And I do like how Samsung brings up this S Pen menu whenever you press the button, which Apple does not. This is useful for taking quick notes on the screen, creating a GIF, and much more. Plus, you can use the S Pen as a remote shutter for when you're taking photos, as well as to control your presentation. So pen-wise, Samsung wins. In terms of the keyboard, Samsung is selling it for $200, while Apple is selling it for $300. The prices do go up with the larger models though. I personally do prefer the way Apple's one looks with this floating design. But Samsung's one comes with function keys, 3 of which can be remapped to whatever app you want, and you also get far more adjustability when it comes to the viewing angles. They both offer trackpads and backlit keys, but because of the sheer functionality and price, I have to give the accessories win to Samsung. So far, Samsung has 2 wins. But performance-wise, this is a bit of a different story. The fact that Apple's using the M1 chip in their iPad Pros which they've also been using in their Macs, means that even with the flagship Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chip inside the Samsung tablets, they just cannot match the performance of the iPad in any way. Of course, this doesn't mean that a Tab S8 is slow by any means, but if you do want to use pro apps like LumaFusion, Photoshop, or Autodesk, then the iPad Pro is going to be the better choice. Then we have the unique features that these tablets offer. For the iPad, I would say that the biggest one is Thunderbolt, which allows you to transfer large files from an external drive incredibly fast, as well as connect to super high-resolution monitors. Oh, and the iPad's keyboard does come with an extra USB-C port for charging or connecting an additional drive. On top of this, the iPad Pros support up to 2 terabytes of insanely fast 2.3 gigabyte per second storage compared to 512 on the Tab S8 Plus and the Tab S8 Ultra, with the option of adding a microSD card for up to 1 terabyte of storage. Now, the speeds of the Tab S8 storage are unknown, but they are expected to be more in line with regular smartphones, with around 800 megabytes per second to about 1.3 gigabytes per second. Still fast, just not as fast as the iPad Pros. Both tablets feature cameras on both the front and the back, but the iPad Pro's back camera system is a bit more advanced. The iPad Pro also has a LiDAR module, which allows you to scan objects and map entire rooms in 3D. Very useful for architects and interior designers. The iPad also features Face ID, compared to an in-display fingerprint reader on the Tab S8 Plus and the Tab S8 Ultra. Face ID is especially useful on a tablet where you don't want to be looking for the exact position of the fingerprint reader all the time. The iPad Pro can also record 4K 60 video as opposed to just 4K 30. The unique features of the Tab S8 include the dual front-facing cameras on the Ultra model, one wide and one ultra-wide, which can record 4K 30 as opposed to just 1080p 60 on the iPad. This does sadly introduce a notch, although the bezels are indeed much thinner than on the iPad. We also have 45-watt fast charging on all 3 Tab S8 models for a full charge in just 80 minutes, as well as Wi-Fi 6E as opposed to Wi-Fi 6 on the iPad Pros. There's no denying that the iPad Pro is the more pro device here. However, a lot of the features like file management are heavily restricted by iPadOS, and for me, I would still prefer using an actual laptop to do those things. The Tab S8 is closer to a laptop in that regard, but Pro features alone, the iPad Pro wins. But what about value? Well, the iPad Pro starts from $800 for the 11-inch model in 128 gigabytes of storage, and $1,100 for the 12.9-inch model. Adding the Apple Pencil will bring it to $1,228, and if you add the keyboard too, you're already at $1,577, and that's for the baseline non-cellular model. The Tab S8 starts from $700, the S8 Plus from $900, and the S8 Ultra from $1,100. So Samsung's 14.6-inch tablet costs the same as Apple's 12.9-inch one. On top of this, you also get a free keyboard case with every pre-order in addition to the S Pen in the box. Meaning that to get the same out of an iPad Pro, you would have to pay almost $500 extra, and you would still get a smaller display. Overall, I do think that it really depends on what you need a tablet for. If you do need to do professional work and you need that 1600 in display for editing HDR videos, Thunderbolt for connecting super fast drives, and the performance of the M1 chip, then definitely go with the iPad Pro. But if you just need a tablet for web browsing and media consumption, the Tab S8 is the better choice here, thanks to its larger display on the Ultra model that is also OLED, with better multitasking, DeX mode, and of course, the more affordable price points. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments, and definitely subscribe for some potential hands-on videos with the Tab S8. I'm Daniel, this is Zone of Tech, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Zone of Tech, signing out. Cheers.